4,400 houses, farmhouses, offices were raided in one single night across Punjab to arrest the people, to harass them, to beat the servants, to destroy their property. Doors were broken, walls were climbed. This was an unprecedented event in the history of Pakistan. People arrested right at the door of the High Courts. Just in the last 24 hours in Faisalabad is a geopolitical reorientation and restructuring. And we can only end all this.
My son is they keep coming looking for him. His business was they threatened the contractors who were working with him. My sister and myself, we had 4 terrorism charges against us.
History always proves Imran Khan right. The stance that he has taken, they're always hard stances, they're difficult for people to understand.
Right down to children actually. And where they're not allowing the flag, you can't use.
Pakistani people don't have the ability to act out their own will in response. And so that's why democracy is such a threat both internally and externally.
Protecting the sovereignty of countries around the world, we're saying, don't go to war with that country, or don't put sanctions on that country, don't meddle. But in this case with Pakistan, they've actually reversed it, and they're saying, well, we don't want to meddle, with that court system decides to disqualify those candidates or lock up those people, we're respecting Pakistani sovereignty.
That the military had called the publishers, the owners of a lot of broadcast companies to a meeting in Islamabad and said, there will be no more mentioning of Imran Khan. That it was.
How interesting. How interesting that you can make up a demand like that.
Bismillah. Alhamdulillah, assalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Thank you all for coming today for all this, that we are all gathered here for the discussion of human rights and democracy situation in Pakistan. And as Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that there is no gathering blessed if the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not mentioned in it. So I'm just gonna give you a little bit more what I just learned a few days ago. It was very deep. So I'm just going to share, and then I will hand over to Dr. Moeed to introduce our panelists. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَسِرُّوا قَوْلَكُمْ أَوِجْهَرُوا بِهِ إِنَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتِ الصُّدُورِ أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. That if you, whatever you have in your heart, whatever you hide, and whatever you say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the God of this universe, it knows. So you can't hide, whatever is in your heart, He knows that. And what the important part is, Allah ya'lamu man khalaq. Does He not know that who He has created? Wa huwa al-latiful khabir. The word latif and khabir is used in the Holy Quran about 5 times together, and it's very important meaning. The latif means that He knows the subtleness, the minute detail and deep detail of everything. And khabar mean that somebody give you the news. But khabir, when you know ins and out, outside in, front, back, right, left, everything in detail. So He says that I have created you, and I know created you in a very subtle detail, in a loving, caring fashion, and I know what I have created. And then He says, huwa allazi ja'ala lakumul arda zalulan, that we have settled this earth, which was zalul, mean that is trembling, like all these earthquakes. So we have calmed it down to very, very depth, so it will let us walk on it. But this earth will go back into وَإِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا, that we will make it tremble again, so will comes everything's out of it. And we are made from this same earth, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. So there are some of them. Some of us still behave like that. Allah says that no, you are created from this earth and you have to behave as well, that I made this earth very humble, calm and quiet. So our responsibility on this earth is to help each other, to be justice. Even I have to serve the justice to my family, to my community. The justice is mandatory upon us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and again in the Quran, that Ya ayyuhallazina amanu kunu qawwamina bil qist shuhada. O you who believed, be firm in justice and witness. So if I am given the authority, I'm supposed to deliver a justice. I should not see that who is in front and follow the footsteps of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we are here together today to discuss that why the justice is not being done in Pakistan. Who is responsible? And how can we help each other so that we can deliver the human rights, justice to everybody? So that is what I do not have much knowledge in this political affairs. But I all knows that is my job on this planet, is to deliver justice to my kids, to my community, to my county, and to my country, and be faithful and be honest, so that I can leave a footstep and a stamp on this planet that I came in this world for 30, 40, 50, 70 years, and I fulfill my responsibility for the power and the knowledge I was given, and that is what I'm going to leave this world better than I found it. If you have that goal in your mind that I am going to leave this world empty-handed, and I need to leave this planet empty-handed and leave this planet better than I found it, then justice is being done and being delivered. So I hand over the mic to our brother, Dr. Munir, who will introduce the panelists. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Nadeem. Before I introduce the panelists, I would like to share some of my thoughts very briefly. As I stand here today on these very sacred grounds, sacred not because this is a place of learning, sacred because it is named after the greatest American who ever lived, George Washington. One man who defined America since the time of its inception till the end of times. I always tell my children that America is great because it had the greatest founding fathers. And today we are all gathered here as proud Americans, asking questions according to what our founding fathers taught us. We are gathered here as proud Pakistani Americans because we are worried about both Pakistan and America, because we believe a destabilized Pakistan will never be in the interests of America. On the other hand, a strong, economically strong, democratic and vibrant Pakistan will be one of the greater achievements of American foreign policy. Now, why do we need our identity as Pakistani Americans here in America? Because the Chicago River still flows green on St. Patrick's Day. Because Chinatowns are still a vibrant part of every American major city. Because Spanish Americans, Italian Americans, Greek Americans, and all the other ethnicities, they maintain their roots. And that's what makes America the greatest country in the history of mankind. A true melting pot, a brilliant collage of different colors that we all lovingly and proudly call our home, the United States of America. I would like to thank all our fellow organizers here, Dr. Tahir, Dr. Nadeem, Mr. Usman, Mr. Hazik, and all the others who put their time, effort, and resources to make this event possible. I would like to thank our fellow panelists, Dr. Moeed Pirzada, Mr. Ryan Grims of the Intercept magazine, and Mr. Eric Sperling of Just Foreign Policy think tank. They will all share their thoughts as we try to solve the riddle of what happened in Pakistan. Now, let me make one thing very clear. None of us came here today because we hate anyone. But all of us came here today because of one reason and one reason only, and that is we all love Pakistan. However, we are all greatly worried that a great crime is being committed in Pakistan and great injustice is being carried out in Pakistan. And the second worst thing that anyone can do after directly committing those crimes is to stay silent while those crimes are being committed. So the way the panel discussion will take place today, first I will be requesting Dr. Moeed Pirzada to share his thoughts, and then Mr. Ryan Grims and Eric Sperling will share their words with us, and then we will have a question and answer session. Dr. Moeed Pirzada, we are here in Washington, D.C. There's a tradition in this city, in this great city, that the president of the country, whosoever that might be for that year, delivers a speech, and it's called the State of the Union. I understand you are not the president of any place. However, I will request you to deliver a speech about the state of union in Pakistan, as to what is the state of union of current Pakistan. Dr. Moeed Pirzada.
Assalamu alaikum to all of you. A bit taken aback, I wasn't expecting that. Thank you so much. I was expecting that Alima Khan will first start with her comments, and then we'll probably be having a panel discussion. So a little bit taken back and not necessarily prepared for the State of the Union address on Pakistan. I had my different kind of points which I wanted to share with you. A few weeks ago, I was also in a different university, I think Georgetown University, with lots of students. And I realized that one argument that is given to explain Pakistan, or to not explain what's happening in Pakistan, is to say that what is happening in Pakistan has always been happening. That the country was always like this. There's always been a very assertive military. Whenever a government they didn't like, they wanted to change the government, so people have a lot of references in the history, as Ryan, who follows Pakistan, as Eric also follows Pakistan. So when you look at Pakistan from a distance, when you look at Pakistan from Washington or from London, you can see the Pakistani military was always bringing in the governments, always throwing out the governments. There was a martial law in 1958, there was again a martial law in 1969, then there was a martial law in 1977, then Musharraf intervened, another martial law in October 99, Nawaz was removed. Then again people, of course, remember that how Nawaz was unceremoniously, the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif, was unceremoniously removed through Supreme Court in July or August of 2017. So when people from a distance, or people who are very young, I'm 58 years of age, I have lived through my school days when Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was hanged through the Supreme Court. So I have lived through the Pakistani history. I have served as a civil servant in Pakistan as a government for more than 10 years. Then I worked for almost 20 plus years, at both as a consultant and as a television anchor person, but also as editor of major television channels. And I brought up publications in Pakistan like Global Village Space. I have written extensively. I have spoken extensively to universities across the world. So I have lived through the turbulence and the uncertainty of Pakistan. With this background, the first important point I want to assert is what is happening in Pakistan is unprecedented. You can have comparisons with a brief time period in 1977-79, when General Ziaul Haq wanted to hang Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, wanted to get rid of him. But the difference was this, that on 5th of July 1977, a formal martial law was declared in Pakistan. Military commandos were set up, what is called as the martial law administrators. The courts were made dysfunctional. There was no writ of habeas corpus or petition to the high courts. And people accepted that. And the martial law of 1977 came after 4 months of civil agitation, political agitation led by a coalition of political parties called PNA, Pakistan National Alliance. So the people were tired. When the martial law came, the martial law offered itself as a solution to the internal conflict of Pakistan. So the PPP, the party that was removed, very quickly accepted the imposition of the martial law. And there wasn't much of a public resistance on the streets. What happened in 2022, when Imran Khan government was changed, apparently on the face of it through a democratic means of called as vote of no confidence, but now if there were people who didn't accept that, were not cognizant, realize that it wasn't a democratic removal, it was actually done by General Bajwa and the military, I don't think any such innocents are left anymore. So people realize that the government was removed by the military, and the so-called PDM movement of PPP and PMLN were just proxies in the front. But since martial law was not formally imposed, and there was a democratic facade, and the democratic facade was needed to sell the change to the Western capitals, notably the most important, Washington, the second most important is London, and the third is European Union, the Brussels. So a facade was maintained that what was happening in Pakistan was a normal, natural, democratic change. But it wasn't. But since the presentation was a democratic change, so people came on the streets. People thought they had the right to protest, and Imran Khan launched a movement. And the military authorities who controlled the whole structure, in order to suppress that movement, they went on to unprecedented crackdown after crackdown, crackdown after crackdown. So when you basically say the current state of democracy and human rights violations in Pakistan, if you just discuss the events of the violations of human rights and democracy or the crackdowns, you miss the point. The point is this, that they had to resurrect and change the nature and direction of Pakistani politics. They wanted to dismantle the politics which had created or evolved also through the establishment itself for the past, say, 10, 12 years after General Musharraf. And they wanted to impose a new political structure. Now, there can be a lot of agreement or disagreement and debate as to what they really wanted to do. But the first thing which I want to emphasize, and subsequently we will have question answers, that when you talk in terms of democracy and human rights, I mean, if you just lost in the violation 101, violation 500, and how many people have been arrested and how many people, how the May 9th was created and other things, you miss the point that the military establishment in Pakistan has been tasked or wants to or has been tasked from the outside to change the direction of the Pakistani politics. A few days ago, I was with Eric Sperling in a discussion inside Congress in the Rayburn office building, and Eric was very cautious in saying things, but still, nevertheless, when I asked him the question, I was moderating the discussion, and Eric said, I think whatever is happening is basically geopolitics, is geostrategic, and why the things in Pakistan are being ignored, because everything that has happened in Pakistan in the last 22 months flies against the logic of the liberal world order. I mean, it militates, insults, destroys, just like Netanyahu's antics have totally violated every norm of the Western democracy, of the Western liberal order. Similarly, Pakistan is not in such a sharp focus, so people do not realize. But some people like Ryan Grimm are watching inside what's happening in Pakistan. So what has happened in Pakistan totally militates every norm, every value that has been held sacred and important by the liberal democratic order in Washington, London, Brussels, European Union. But you see you see hardly any reaction to it, which helps you understand this thing, that the change that is being brought inside Pakistan has a clear approval, a stamp approval. Analytically speaking, there is no other way of understanding it except the fact that Washington, London, Brussels approve whatever the Pakistani military is doing inside Pakistan, which then brings us to a very perplexing, troubling question, that as to what do they really want? What is the desired outcome of all this? And I'm afraid there is no clear consensus on it. I have my own analysis or my theories or my way of understanding it, and I do my daily vlog, which is watched by 200,000 people in 24 hours. But when I read their comments, I think my telling top to bottom communication is not effective unless a very large number of people on their own understand what is really happening in Pakistan and why it's happening. So yes, thousands of people, there have been two major crackdowns in Pakistan since the 10th April 2022. The first major crackdown happened in May of 2022, when everyone inside Pakistan still thought that they have a democratic right to come out on the streets, protest, long march, and so on. So people from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and people from Lahore and different parts of Punjab, in call of Imran Khan's call on long march to force the early elections, tried marching on to Islamabad. And many of you who actively watch Pakistan, and some of you might not, I was in Pakistan, I was in my office, and the kind of crackdown that was done against the people across Punjab. For instance, in order to, in the anticipation of that march, in order to fail that march so that people cannot even assemble, 4,400, this is official figures of the government of Punjab, 4,400 houses, farmhouses, offices were raided in one single night across Punjab to arrest the people, to harass them, to beat their servants, to destroy their property. Doors were broken, walls were climbed. This was an unprecedented event in the history of Pakistan. Never before in the history of mainstream Pakistan. Yes, some people might say these things have been happening in Balochistan. Yes, these things happen in Balochistan. We have no real understanding of what has been happening in Balochistan. Similarly, similar things must have happened in former East Pakistan. And similar things might have happened in FATA, the erstwhile federally administered tribal areas, which were the scene of conflict after 9/11. But nothing like that has ever happened in Punjab. Nothing like that ever happened in a mainstream Punjabi, Pakistani, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa city, where in one single night the police authorities, in ultra wires of law, without any justification, would find out some sort of arcane deputy commissioner's authority to get into the people's home, climb the walls, break the doors, get into the homes, beat the people, to harass them. I mean, this kind of reign of terror has never been seen. And that was the beginning of a reign of terror in Pakistan. And then kept on increasing with the facade of a democratic government of PDM sitting, which was totally hands in glove with the military authorities. The second most important event, which I refer to as the Natak, was played on 9th May 2023, when in anticipation of the fact that sooner or later what was being done to the election, because they didn't want to hold the elections, so people would come on the street, Imran Khan and PTI would give a call, and people would come on the streets in order to fail that, in anticipation of that, so that it doesn't happen. And there was also a lot of resistance inside the military. And people, I'm explaining all these things because many people have not been able to understand the way things have developed. So people inside the military, there were hundreds of officers at the top level that were resisting the top high command, and they didn't know what the top high command was doing. And they were continuously muttering. They were saying things, we should have negotiation, we should find a solution, things are not right, going in the right way, public is against the military. In order to control them, in order to emasculate them, and in order to emasculate the public, the May 9th was staged as a natak in which the message was sent, a narrative was created that rogue public and rogue political party and people have attacked the national institutions, the national security institutions. And many people who watch Pakistan fully understand this because what happened afterwards, you could have been misled by the way the events were constructed, but when you see what happened after 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, that how people who were blamed for organizing all this were basically asked to do press conferences and hunky-dory, they were set free. Or none of the security person was injured or hurt or killed. The people obviously didn't carry any firearms. But this second event, if the first was the beginning of a reign of terror, the second event was the formal imposition of an undeclared martial law. Now, what is happening in Pakistan is that Pakistan suffers from a political condition which I call, for want of any better word, as martial law plus. Now, what is the difference between a martial law and martial law plus? A martial law plus is a very interesting political concept in which you have martial law, but you don't call it martial law. But if you have a former imposition of martial law, then you suspend the high courts, the courts, people accept that, there are no courts, you have no writ jurisdiction. But in case of martial law plus is this, that the courts are there, the National Assembly is there is a civilian government, there is a prime minister, a so-called caretaker prime minister, there is a president and everything. But all of them have been made dysfunctional. So once again, the people who follow the Pakistan understand that courts have no real authority. They're just there for optics reason. They can't deliver, they can't give any relief. High courts give relief to the people. People are arrested right at the door of the high courts. Just in the last 24 hours in Faisalabad, there was someone who went into a court for getting his relief. And from within the premises of the court, 4 people, the na-maloom, the unidentified people, grabbed him by his hands and his arms, and they brought him out and they put him in a car in the full glare of the cameras. I mean, you go on Twitter, you go on anywhere on the WhatsApp, this video circulating. He was an ex-member of National Assembly or Provincial Assembly, and he went to the court for getting his bail. This is happening to the people who want to fight the elections. So we can be lost, what they say, that you get too close into the jungle or forest and you look at the trees, but you don't look at the forest. So my purpose or the point was to bring home the realization, yes, there are human rights violations, there are atrocities, there is suppression of democracy, which we need to discuss, and I'm sure other panelists will discuss. But the bigger picture is that what is happening in Pakistan is a geopolitical reorientation and restructuring. And we can only end all this. First of all, we have to diagnose that what are the real demands of the external powers who control the Pakistani military, and what do they want? What the Washington requires, what London requires, what are the requirements? My argument is that many Pakistanis unnecessarily get confused by Israel. Israel is not very interested in Pakistan. Getting Pakistan's recognition of Israel can be a Saudi UAE additional requirement, in the sense that they can make their offer to Israel more sweetening by bringing Pakistan along, just like when you say buy one, get one free, it is that kind of thing. But as such, Israel doesn't get much by recognition of Pakistan. This is just a confusion, megalomania, the kind of way the narrative has been shaped. The real issue is regional. It is the containment of China, and it is the ascendancy of India in South Asia. Because all geostrategic thinkers in this country where we stand have been writing for the past 10, 15 years that unless India has ascendancy in that region, which is Pakistan and then Afghanistan, so India has a friendly Pakistan that does not resist India, gives India a market access, gives India the motorways and highways and roads to reach out to Afghanistan and Central Asia. Till that time, China, which is a far bigger economic giant, cannot be effectively contained. So what is happening in Pakistan is a, you can call sophisticated or you can call crude China containment policy. That is why the military has been allowed to do whatever they want to do, and they are doing whatever they are doing. And you see that there is hardly any, there is not even a purr from here. So if we want to resolve that situation, we need to have some sort of negotiation with the real powers, which we don't have the capacity, but we have to understand what do they want. And my view is this, that the selling argument is that whatever is needed between India and Pakistan and China is better done through a broad-based, democratically elected government. In my last vlog, I even addressed that if I were the advisor of the India's Ministry of External Affairs and India's intelligence agency, I would say don't negotiate with the dummy government. Don't negotiate with the government in Pakistan, which has no authority, which has no broad-based legitimacy. You should deal with the democratically elected, popular government that has the representation, the will or backing of the people of Pakistan, that can tread the difficult path of negotiating with India, which has been defined as an existential conflict, but not under the directives of Washington and London, because that will create bigger problems. And the kind of problems we have seen so far, this is only the beginning of the problem. Whatever we've seen so far, there is still a country which has not gone to dogs. But if this is done through a dummy government, a negotiation with India, and all what they want to do, then there would be real chaos, a real kind of chaos. There will be resistance to it, which will be very organic. So this is the broad picture which I have presented. I hope or I may have satisfied Dr. Munir's State of the Union thing, but this is what I was thinking of saying. So thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing to the other people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Moeed bhai, as usual. Brilliant, Dr. Moeed Pirzada. So we will move on now. We have the sister of former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Imran Khan. Mrs. Alima Khan with us. She'll be joining us via Zoom video link, and she will explain to us first-hand account of what's happening in Pakistan, what herself, her family, and obviously her brother that we all love and care about so much is going through right now. So, Ms. Alima Khan. Assalamu alaikum, Alima Appa. Can you hear us?
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, I can hear you.
So this is
well, I suppose you would. Sorry.
Alima, I'm Dr. Mohammad Munir. I'm the moderator of this program today. So first, can you please share your thoughts with us, and then some of our panelists will like to ask you some questions. So please go ahead and share your thoughts with us.
Well, I can thank you for inviting me to your forum. I've just arrived. Actually, I've just come. We have this is a time when we have a lot of fog on the roads, and I've just arrived actually from the jail. So about 5-6 days, my brother has court hearings inside the jail. So we spend, I think we are basically in jail for 5 days. So it's not just him in jail, everybody, only 5 family members are allowed to attend, and the lawyers. But from there, I've just arrived in Lahore. Just to give you an idea that for the past 8 months, it's an incredible experience. If you ask me how we fared, I think we've come out much stronger that we've never experienced in Pakistan. I don't think in our living memory that we've experienced such abuse, such a lawless sort of invasion of privacy. It's just been quite incredible. I'll give you our own family example to give you an idea. I went to a protest in 27 years, as my brother always says, that there've never been any incidents at all PTI rallies. It's only his party rallies that you could even see 2-year-old children or maybe 3-month-old babies arriving at rallies. So families and women do not turn up at rallies. And all of us, I don't think we would end up in rallies all alone. But it was always so safe and so festive. So I went to a similar rally when our brother was arrested. And my driver, who took me there and then left, he was arrested 10 days later, and he just got released 5 days ago. That's 8 months incarcerated, no trial. We were trying for his bail. Nobody released him. My nephew's in jail. My brother is in jail. My son is they keep coming looking for him. His business was they threatened the contractors who were working with him. So, and this is just our family. My sister and myself, we have 4 terrorism charges against us. We've got 4 FIRs, like the first information report. And we have to go for bail hearings to a court. Nobody conducts any trial. I've asked the judge several times, if you conducted a trial and found us to be guilty of terrorism, then you should imprison us. Or if you do not find us guilty, then release us. Let us go from this, what we are facing. That's only our family. My brother has been in jail for over 5 months. One of the blessings of the court in jail has been that we actually get to see him. He's otherwise in isolation. Him and Shah Mahmood Qureshi are in solitary confinement. But because of the court hearings in jail, which is held in a community center, which is so cold that we all frozen, even the judge himself is frozen. But we attend those hearings and we get to see him. And after a lot of effort by the lawyers, they've really been very, very good. They've gone to high courts, they've gone to Supreme Courts. So now a few media people are allowed in. But if they leave and if they dare to discuss his condition or like how he looks, there have been instances where a few journalists or reporters turned up and they described him, and they were fired from their news channel. You're not allowed to talk about him. Current situation, his political situation, like the candidates, it's become a norm. People expect to be arrested if they are going to be a candidate for his political party. that's considered to be an expectation. They have tried everything. There are people who are arrested earlier, but now they are just picking up people. I mean, it's abduction. It's basically not arrest. They're just abducted. So I think it's become a bit of a way of life. And what can I say? That it's never been seen in Pakistan before. And I don't think it's going to continue. There's a lot of anger. So what's happening, and we keep hearing about it, is that when the other candidates try to step out of their homes, people will not direct their anger at government, military or the police, but they are beginning to direct their anger at the other candidate. Now that's not something Imran Khan has told them to do. He hasn't asked them to sort of harass anybody. But I don't think there's a situation where you can prevent that. So we are just living a life of court cases and lawyers and jail, and we're waiting for somebody to come and arrest us. It's just a normal way of life right now for us. And we'll face it. He's facing it because he's facing it. So we're all happy to face it too.
Thank you, Alim Appa, for your first-hand account of the tyranny and torture and suppression that you, your family members, and the rest of majority of Pakistanis are going through. I would like to ask a question about our great leader, Mr. Imran Khan. How is he in physical? What kind of physical health he is in? How is he holding up after being incarcerated for 5 months at the age of 71?
Actually, I think he's become an inspiration for a lot of people. That's why they don't want anybody to describe him when they come out. He comes out in better health and spirit than all of us sitting over there in that cold. And he's normally in an excellent mood. He jokes with the judge. He jokes with now that we have a few media people who are attending. And he's actually in very good spirits because in the beginning, I'll tell you about the first few months. The first few months when everybody kept saying he's going to break in solitary. So we were quite, we knowing our brother, we know that he's a very strong person mentally. So I told him, I said, why don't you describe yourself? So that everybody thinks I'm biased if I talk about you. So he said, well, he thought about it and said, spiritually, mentally, and physically, I have gone from the ground up to the heavens. He said, because you know what retreats are. He says, you know why people go into a retreat is basically to have alone time and for contemplation. So I've had such a lot of time to think. And I've gone over, I never had time. So now I've got time to think, and I'm reading books that I never got a chance to read because I never had time. So he's enjoying books. We can't keep up with the amount of books he reads. So we're always requesting people to please send us more references and books for him to read. And of course, he reads his Quran, and he's read it thrice, and he's studying the Quran. And he's got a sort of a stationary bicycle so he needed his exercise because that's, I think, is everybody's right for some exercise. He's not allowed out. So he's got that bicycle, the gym bicycle that he has. So, maybe 1 hour to walk, but that's about it. He doesn't complain about his cell. It's actually a very tiny little cell. He's not got a political prisoner cell. He's in what they call the Bakshi Khana, which is like for what they call common criminals. So he's fine. He doesn't complain about it.
That's wonderful. That's good to know. That's excellent. I've always told my friends many, many years ago when Imran Khan's political party was not very popular among the masses, they did not have a huge representation in the political arena of Pakistan. But I used to always say that history always proves Imran Khan right. And I can, testify again here that history will again prove him right. The stance that he has taken, They're always hard stances. They're difficult for people to understand, even his opponents. But many years from now, they will all realize that he was on the right. And that's what's going to happen. So I will request all of you, if you can go ahead and ask any questions directly from Mr. Imran Khan. Moeed bhai, you go ahead.
I don't know. Oh, can you, would you be able to speak briefly about how the hearings are going? And is the judge favorable towards the prosecution? Do they just keep throwing up new charges and new documents and new witnesses, or is there any hope of any of these prosecutions ending at any point?
I think all of the cases, not just one, all of them, are so farcical. What we've seen is that I think some of our lawyers have done very well. They've gone into high court. They've sort of challenged a lot of the hearings, which were being, the Cypher case. One of the most it's like the most ridiculous case is the Cypher case. He's being charged under a law. You have to understand that that law is from 1923, after the First World War, where the British put up a law that anybody takes pictures of their installation, because maybe that's when the cameras were newly introduced. Anybody takes, basically about military installations. If they take any pictures and give it to an enemy country, they will be charged with treason. Now this law, what I heard from the High Court judge when he was listening to this hearing in camera, which means it's in secrecy, he said this is only the second time in 100 years that this law has been used in 75 years that this law has been used in Pakistan. And he says, we do not understand how you can charge a person for treason for something that he told his people. He's been elected by the people. That's not what the judge said, but that's what Imran Khan says. He said, I was elected by my people. And if somebody comes to drop my government or dismiss my government, I have a right to tell them that there was interference or a conspiracy by General Bajwa to actually remove my government. Now, if he says that there was a conspiracy, so he is now charged with treason with a law that has absolutely no application on him. And what they are discussing it, what they are diverting it towards is the piece of paper itself, that this is a secret document. It's like a cipher code which was revealed. That is actually not even applicable. So the judge, poor man, and I think a few of the judges are under extreme pressure. And my brother always says, poor judge can't do much because he's got to take orders from elsewhere. He's actually, these are trial judges. So these are just farcical cases. I mean, they're just stretching it. The Cypher case has been ordered by the High Court judge to be repeated again and again. This is the third time that case is being sort of tried again. So they don't have much to stand on. The lawyers have sort of shredded one of the cases today. He's shredded the witnesses. I mean, it was so bad that even the judge, I felt, was embarrassed. So I think there's a point where even the trial judge can't do much. Forget about that. When you go to the Supreme Court cancelled his bat, the political bat. It's now they've given people vegetables as symbols and wheelchairs. So Pakistan is having fun with the symbols they've been given. They're trying, it's like if you call rigging, it's pre-poll rigging, they're dismantling the party. They've taken away the symbol. The symbol isn't Imran Khan's to take away or the PTI's to take away. It is in Pakistan, about 15 million people cannot read. So how are they going to identify their candidate without a symbol? So that's what they're trying to do, disenfranchise about 15 million people who cannot read.
This is Dr. Moeed Pirzada. Good to see you. I hope you can hear me.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. The symbol, the bat, after the snatching of the bat, it appears that the establishment has created a very interesting and complex challenge for PTI. If PTI would boycott the election, which it hasn't, it has boldly accepted the challenge, then they would say, what can we do? They boycotted the election. But they have not allowed PTI to, for all practical purposes, they have banned PTI as a political entity. While they have not banned PTI, they have actually banned PTI. Because in the election, there is no PTI. There are only 700 plus independent people who claim to be representing PTI in national and provincial assemblies. Out of the 2,400 people of PTI who had applied for the tickets, 700 plus got the tickets. The rest of them are very upset and angry, and they will also be telling the constituents that we are the actual people who got the ticket, because none of them has the bat symbol. So have you figured out how to meet this communication challenge in every constituency, where the disgruntled PTI people who have not got the tickets are also claiming that we are PTI? For instance, in Gujarat, Imran Khan has given all authority for distribution of tickets to Munir Khan, and Munir has naturally given tickets to his own PMLQ people. So the PTI rank and file in Gujarat are upset, and they're also fighting against the people put up by Munir. So this is and this, of course, this challenge has been created very intelligently by the establishment. They have thrown everything into chaos. So have you figured out any strategy in the constituencies?
Well, it's not mine to figure out, but I can tell you it's quite entertaining. I mean, watching this whole thing unfold is quite... But imagine people applying for a ticket, when they know that they get that, one of the first things that's going to happen is they're going to be abducted. I mean, isn't that interesting? The fact that they're fighting for a ticket, fighting to become a candidate, where they know that the first thing that's going to happen is their house is going to be raided, it's going to be broken down. They've got to immediately go into hiding. Right now, we get calls from my brother's constituent. Please let me point out, my brother is not standing for election because they will not reinstate, like his conviction. Like they are not cancelling his conviction, which is ridiculous because the case was farcical. The judge said the case was mishandled by a particular judge in June, Dilawar. But they will not overturn the conviction. Now that for you should be interesting. Now he's not standing in any seat, but in some of the areas, it's as I said, Moeed, you when you left Pakistan, it's 100 years ago. Pakistan is a different place right now, and the spirit is incredible. I mean, I know what you're thinking of is as stressful, but I am thoroughly sort of inspired. I'm inspired by the spirit of the people. So they happily tell you, oh, by the way, I went underground the moment my ticket confirmation came. Now I'm in hiding, but not to worry, I'm organizing my polling agents. They are underground as well. So I said, if you're all underground, when are you planning to surface, and how will you man your polling stations? This is in my brother's constituency. But don't you think that's interesting? They've created an underworld. I mean, it's like you've created resistance, basically, where you go underground. I mean, you would think you're in Kashmir and you're being invaded by an Indian army, like they are controlling in India, in Indian Kashmir. But it's okay. It's like people they are up for the fight. They are willing to stand and vote. People are looking for the ballot box to put their vote in. And people ask me, it says, so who's going to go out and do rallies or sort of ask for votes from their constituents? At the moment, I'm getting calls, which I have no idea what to tell them, is they're saying, who's my candidate? I'm going to set up an office for them. So people are looking for the candidate. You do not understand the situation over here. It's not the candidate looking for his constituents. It's the constituents looking for their candidate. So the candidate, if he goes into hiding, people say, don't worry, we'll organize ourselves. So it's a very different situation, and the next few weeks, you'll see, it doesn't matter, PTI and their people are just standing up for the fight, and Imran seems to be, he's fine over there in the jail.
Thank you. Do you want to ask a question, or you want to ask?
One more from me. This is Ryan Grimm again, and then Eric might have one. What about post-ballot election rigging? Are you concerned that the votes just simply won't be counted and they will submit made-up numbers to the central voting authorities?
Listen, if that has to happen, let it happen. I mean, how many votes can you rig? I think you have to understand right now that vote is people's weapon, and they're all going to come out to vote. And in some places, it's like, as I said, people are looking for the candidate. The candidate is not looking to go and canvass amongst its constituents. There's a determination right down to the young people, right down to children actually. And where they're not allowing the flag, you can't use the two colors, the green and red, which is a PTI color that people recognize on a flag. PTI is not allowed to have flags. They are not allowed to use Imran Khan's face on their posters. They are not allowed to come out with anything that indicates that it's got anything to do with Imran Khan. So that's a challenge. People will figure it out. At the moment, they are making jingles on their symbols. I asked one of the candidates, I said, what jingle are you going to make out of your symbol, which is a wheelchair? He's got a wheelchair. So I said, the only thing maybe you can do is maybe go out and canvass in your wheelchair, because they've got vegetables, they've got wheelchairs. So people are making jingles on their symbols. So I think the next few weeks will be interesting to watch. Nobody understands. Actually, no one does understand, except Imran Khan seems to have a plan C, and he has not told anyone, not even us. So he's got something planned, because from his smile you can tell he's got a plan, but he intends not to tell anyone.
Thank you, Alima Appa. So, anybody from the audience has a question? I think one more question, Alima Appa. I know it's very late. We'll let you go after that question.
Okay.
Alima Appa, is a follow-up question. What the Ryan has asked you. Let me give you an example. If an election commission sitting in Islamabad and he or whatever who has give the numbers to that, okay, PTI or not PTI, PMLN got this many and other got this many. So they're going to be finalized results. Now, you have seen that Imran has fought that in Dharna about 9 months or so for 4 constituencies to be challenged. And these courts and these judges are not going to give the justice because they don't have the authority. And I hate to say that word, they are dalal. So that is what's going to happen. So who is going to deliver the justice there? Because whatever they're going to make a dummy government is going to be made. It's only the people of Pakistan has to get up and secure their democracy and justice. This cannot be coming from outside. So that is what my gut feeling is, that regardless what the people vote, it's not going to be delivered to the numbers that, okay, these are the vote they have got, they did not get. Because there is always rigging, post-election rigging. That is the hallmark of your military establishment.
I do understand, but these are current circumstances that nobody's ever seen before. Either way, nobody's seen such fascism ever in Pakistan, one. Secondly, then you've never seen what Imran Khan... Actually, let me just say that people think that maybe becoming a prime minister was his goal. I'd just like to point out that was never his goal. I think what he's achieved, and I think that's why he's so happy in jail, is what his actual mission was. His actual mission was to help people recognize their own worth. It's the self-worth that he created amongst the youth. That youth has grown up. He's worked on it for 25, 27 years. His target was never prime ministership. His target was first to help the people of Pakistan develop self-worth. That he talks about dignity. He talks about their rights. He's talked about people needing to stand up and fight for their rights. That's in every society anywhere in the world. So societies have risen because when they stand up for their rights. So that's not terrorism. That's people demanding their rights. And he's taught the youth that. So now there's a youth which has stood up, and the incredible invention of social media has become their vehicle and their platform. And they're quite independent from propaganda. And that youth is going to stand up for themselves now. It's not standing up for Imran Khan. They are going to stand up for their own rights. And it's a test of time. The next few years will determine where Pakistan is going to go, because the youth will need to stand up and fight for their rights and for their country. So it's a fight for survival for all the 50% young people. And this is Imran's test to see if he's managed to achieve that.
Thank you, Alim Appa. One last question from Mr. Eric Sperling of Just Foreign Policy magazine. If you can answer his question, please, before you leave. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that really sobering and inspiring information. Thank you so much. I was wondering, has the family or the attorneys had any support or any contact with Western, are there any Western embassies or Western human rights organizations or legal organizations that are expressing their support for the family? Or, kind of what's the international support look like if there is, to the extent there is any? Thanks.
Let me say, it's not that the family needs support. We haven't suffered what a lot of other people have suffered. I would say that we have gotten off easy, as I said, with one brother in jail and a nephew in jail and my staff in jail. We might have cases on us, but we are not in jail. But a lot of people have really suffered. Their businesses have been annihilated, literally. Women are incarcerated. So let me tell you how the women react. Like when they come for bail hearings, and we are also in the anti-terrorist court, I tell you, they are inspirational. There are, I think, about 3 or 4, maybe 5 dozen women who turn up for their bail hearing. They are inspirational in their spirit, because once you've been in jail for a few months, they keep telling you, oh, jail is no issue at all. So sending people to jail might not be the best idea, because they come out much stronger when they come out of jail, much stronger. They lose the fear. Their businesses are annihilated, they've lost that fear as well. The only question, there were like 100 people in a cell waiting for their hearing, and when I went up to them, the only question they asked is, just tell us one thing. Is Imran Khan standing strong? If he's standing strong, tell him not to worry about us. What sort of a spirit is that from people who have been in jail for 6 months for no reason at all? I mean, they are not crying for the unfairness. They are not crying for being treated like that. So I'm telling you, the abuse the women have suffered. They broke into, what they did a few days ago. Imran Khan appointed Gohar Ali Khan, chairman, a young lawyer, as chairman of the party. He said, I'm nominating you to become the chairman of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. That day, he was in the Supreme Court for the bat symbol case. He was in Supreme Court in a hearing. Armed men carrying big guns, I don't know what the names of those guns are. They burst into his house, his young son and his nephew. No, they slapped the servant, they handcuffed his 2 nephew and his son for no reason at all. They went, and the wife, when she saw the police coming, she ran into her room and locked herself in. These armed men were trying to break down the door. What sort of a trauma do you think that family went through? Now there is no, and then they gave a news item saying, oh, by the way, we were mistaken about the home we entered. Like, that's reason enough that you can come into what they are actually trying to establish, that we can walk into anybody's home, armed guns, and there is no accountability, there's no recourse, there's nowhere for you to go and file an FIR. You're frightening the people that we can do it to the chairman of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. I mean, you are going to attack his wife. So how do you think he's supposed to feel? So this is not going to end right now. This is, I feel, is just the beginning. And there is no human rights organization that I've heard of, even in Pakistan, frankly. You know, we hear about women's rights. I'm a woman. I haven't had these NGOs stand up for it. It's like blackout from overseas. So we do understand that it might not be in the national interest of some of these countries, but it doesn't matter. We'll stand up for our own rights. It's okay. We do not need anybody to come and fight our battle. We are 240 million people. If we decide that we'd like to look after our own country, we will look after our own country. We don't need international organizations coming and sort of standing up. And where will they stand up for us? I'll ask you a question. Where will these organizations go? The only thing your country, USA, can do is ban their visas. The ones who steal the ones who are perpetuating this fascism, ban their visas and confiscate their properties. I'm telling you, everything will be absolutely fine in Pakistan. Why don't you try doing that one? If you people sitting over there just ban 20 people's visas and 20 people's properties, I'm telling you, everything in Pakistan will be fine. If I can request all of you, I can give you the list of 20 names. Everybody in Pakistan knows about it. You are sitting in USA, you are in Washington. Why don't you, all of you, just 20 of you go and say, we'll give you a name of 20 people who are responsible for this fascism. Block their visas and confiscate their properties. That's all you people need to do. And we'll be fine. In fact, you can take all of them. Thank you. Can I go now?
Alima,
Thank you for inviting me. I normally... Yeah, sorry.
For you, on behalf of all Pakistanis here, this is a key question that they keep asking. I'm going to touch on what you mentioned, what you just mentioned, and what Eric also mentioned. So you mentioned that their visas should be banned, their properties should be confiscated, and all of these. So we are trying our level best. We've been raising voice. But what is it that PTI leadership, the family of Imran Khan, including Jemima, his sons, what are they doing? What legal course are they taking to make sure these perpetrators, these people, like, you know, that have completely confiscated the country and every institution in the country, and they're controlling? It seems like all your efforts are proving to be futile, right? No matter how hard you try, it's this one person, the military general, who's declared himself as the state, and he's controlling every institution. So what is it that the PTI leadership is doing in the international courts of law to hold these people accountable? Like, you know, that's the question a lot of overseas Pakistanis keep asking. So that's something that I would like to ask you on behalf of...
Can I ask you a question? Yep. May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
We are in Pakistan. You are in USA. Why don't you stand up for Pakistan if you would like to? Because we are sitting in Pakistan. We are the ones who are suffering. But that's fine. But in your countries, you can easily, you want information, it's all available, it's all over the internet. But if it's overseas Pakistanis, if you really want to do something, ban their visas. Confiscate, demand for their properties to be confiscated by your government. You're sitting in USA, confiscate their properties. Why are their properties in USA? He's a general. You know how much they earn? Maybe I don't know, $5,000 a month. And they've got millions of dollars worth of property. The politicians have millions of dollars worth of property. We all know about it. Now, just like they did it with the Russians, they confiscated their properties. So why doesn't, like they've taken steps for Bangladesh. I'm just saying ban their visas. I'm telling you, that's all you need to do. 100 people ban their visas, take away their properties, and actually return the properties to Pakistan. That money belongs to Pakistan. If you people demand that, that's what you can contribute. So why can't you? We are fighting. My brother has 200 cases. Do we fight his case? Do you want us to get up and go and fight everybody's case? I think everybody has to participate. That's all.
Yes, Halima Appa, very well
Everybody
said.
should participate.
Very well said, Halima Appa.
It's a collective effort.
And many amazing
you.
people all over the world, including here in the United States, have been doing it and are doing it, actively participating, trying to raise awareness about these issues and how to, engage different government functionaries to make some of these things happen that you mentioned.
Sorry, may I just say that? May I just say one thing? You talk about raising awareness. I think there's enough awareness. There's enough information. What you need to demand is banning their visas from your country. That's all. Put a ban on their visas, confiscate their properties. That's it. That's all you need to work on. Otherwise, I think it's a waste of time. Otherwise, it's absolutely a waste of time.
People are very resolute. People are steadfast. They are standing with you. They are standing with Imran Khan. They are standing with Pakistan. And they are standing on the right side of history. And trust me, we will succeed. As far as we are concerned, for people like us, what the opponents of Imran Khan do not understand is that Imran Khan for us is not a person. For people like us, Imran Khan as an idea which stands for justice, governance based on rule and law, and true democracy. And no one, and I repeat, no one can stop an idea whose time has come. Thank you, Halima Appa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. So before we go further, she raised some very interesting points about what's happening in Pakistan. Let me tell you my own personal experience as to how I got involved in whatever I'm doing, always interacting with Moeed Bhai in different forums and trying to get awareness or, whatever our little protests we can do. The reason I got involved was because I have a friend in Tampa, Florida, who happens to be a physician. He happens to be a physician who belongs to Lahore in Pakistan originally. And what he told me was, few months ago, after the May 9th incident, one of his cousins, who is just a regular citizen, not a member of any political party, not a political activist, but happens to be one of the thousands and hundreds of thousands of Pakistanis who have attended the political rallies of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. One fine evening, security forces, masked men barge into his house, beat his wife up to the point that he broke her jaw, and then they abduct his cousin and the cousin's 19-year-old daughter. Nobody heard from them for the next 2 weeks, and when they came back, they had nothing but stories of horror to tell. What they said was that the daughter, the 19-year-old daughter, was stripped naked in front of her father, and the father was stripped naked in front of the daughter. We really want to know who these people are, who are imposing this kind of tyranny, and how do you even explain this? There's no even word for this. By your own security forces, really? We need to understand what's the bigger plan here, that you will go to such extreme measures to torture your own people. This 19-year-old daughter is not the daughter of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. She is the daughter of Pakistan. And anyone who thinks otherwise, shame on you. Now, you see, the thing is, today's event, the way we are going to further this event, our discussion will be based on what the founding fathers of this great country taught us. Every question that I will ask you, it will be based on the thoughts and ideas of the founding father of this country. And then we will use the words of the founding father and ask questions about how that applies to what's happening in Pakistan. So I will start with the first thought of one of the great men that you all know of. He says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men." The question to all of you is, do these words of Thomas Jefferson apply to America or to all of mankind? And if they do apply to all of mankind, then what has President Biden administration done to facilitate reconciliation or aggravate the crisis in Pakistan? Mr. Eric Sperling of Just Foreign Policy.
No, thank you so much. And I think it was a really, first of all, informational and helpful, update from Imran Khan's sister. And I appreciate this idea of bringing back to the founding fathers. And I think what this speaks to is, I think the Pakistani community, Pakistani American community's frustration with what is so evident, the human rights violations, and what we've heard from so many people is, how can the Biden administration just stand by? And, I think we all saw or many of us saw when the State Department spokesman responded to Ryan's most recent question that I saw, and he just appears to have he doesn't even pay any attention to what's going on, just completely writes it off. And so I think maybe that, I don't know if that's what's informing this idea of, why doesn't the U.S., care about these principles in this case? And I think it's a very complex answer, as we've discussed. I'm not an expert on Pakistan. Obviously the folks here are the experts there, and Ryan has broken really amazing stories. But I think what our role is as an anti-war person who works in Congress is to try to connect this movement with, try to figure out how to break through and make sure that it resonates in Congress, how you build independent power that can change the calculus for the White House, so that this movement is not, frustrated, saying, why is no one hearing our voice? Why, how is the U.S. continuing to support this? And so I'd love to talk more about that. Thank you.
And I guess the point that I would make on democracy is that it has always been a threat to multiple different entities in every country where it has been born. It is a threat to the elites of that country, but it is also then a threat to neighboring countries and also to countries that aren't neighboring them but have interests in them, because it allows that country to push forward its own interests for its own people democratically, rather than operate based on the interests of other countries. There was, I don't remember the title of the report, but there was an economic study that was just released in the last week or two that compared the economic growth rate in Pakistan to the economic growth rate in India and also in China, and nobody would be surprised by the findings of this report, but it also analyzed why it thought that the growth rate in China was so poor in Pakistan was so poor compared to the other countries. And what they argued was that it was a lack of democracy. And that might sound strange because China being one of the comparisons, but China, as I'm sure most people here know, there are not elections, but there is local control, and businesses in particular that are doing poorly are ruthlessly allowed to fail. The same is true in India. If a business is doing poorly, it fails. What economists have found around the world is that if elites have too much power, what they do is they create companies that are just extractive of the people of that country, pull wealth away from the people toward themselves, run horrible businesses, and protect them from failure, which is what saps the ability to innovate and to grow. It is democracy that spreads the power from the elites down to the people, who then demand a share in that wealth, and through that demand end up producing a system that allows these businesses to fail, which then takes away from the power of the elites who own those businesses and are just extracting wealth from them. Of course, at the same time, you've heard Eric talk before about the kind of geostrategic interests of not just the United States, but also China, Russia, India, everybody else. And it is much easier for these countries to push their will on Pakistan if the Pakistani people don't have the ability to act out their own will in response. And so that's why democracy is such a threat both internally and externally to so many powerful forces. But I think she said it wonderfully. 240 million people, if they want it, they can have it.
So I think it's a very, very provocative argument which Ryan has placed, that when there is a country is not independent in shaping its destiny, and there are forces inside the country in the form of entrenched economic interests and lobbies, and there are interests outside the country. There are two very relevant examples. When the French Revolution came in 1789, they wanted to become a republic. They were against the monarchies. So all the monarchies and the kings of Europe joined together to defeat the French Revolution. But the French fought back, and they actually conquered Europe. I mean, that was a classic example, but French were a big nation. Recently, what happened in Egypt was that was the first Muslim Arab country that wanted to become a republic. Yes, the party that was pushing republicanism was an Islamist party, but nevertheless, they were moving away from the dictatorship and the monarchy in the kingdom, which is ruled by Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain. I mean, you look at them, all of these are kingdoms, and we seldom talk about them. There are families sitting over there, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Jordan. So all of them gang together. I mean, with the support of Israel and maybe United States as well, they all gang together against the Egyptian democracy, and they slaughtered and they destroyed the Egyptian democracy. Now, in case of Pakistan, yes, the Pakistani people have not been. Yeah, the first your question was regarding George Washington. United States is a democracy, is a functioning democracy, is perhaps one of the best democracies in the world, but nevertheless is also an imperfect democracy. And there are very powerful vested interests and lobbies are fighting within the United States. After the tragedies of the October 7th, when the Hamas did the unspeakable horror on the Israeli side, we have seen how the various lobbies have fought against each other, and how the people of the United States are not necessarily independent in shaping their own foreign policy. This is how I have seen that. I mean, not everyone in the United States, or the great majority of the American people, are not supporting what is happening in Gaza, but they're totally helpless in controlling this. So United States, despite being a very good democracy, and it's good to be here, is a very imperfect democracy. Pakistan has never been a democracy. It is being controlled by various kind of interests. And in order to protect their own privileged interest, like the civil military bureaucracies, the judiciary, they are willing to side with the outside interest. And there has been a shift in power alienation in the sense that this establishment elite wanted to get rid of Nawaz because they thought that Nawaz wanted to improve relation with India. They saw Nawaz as a threat to their hold. They were afraid of Nawaz. But then Nawaz struck an equation, what is happening in Pakistan from a geostrategic lens. Nawaz struck an equation with outside forces after going to London, and he has taken over the country along with the establishment, and rest is all history.
But that leads us to us next question. First of all, I think one thing that history has taught us is that democracy is the best way for any society to develop and grow. We saw it in Europe. The imperialistic Europe was at war at each other's at loggerheads for centuries. But the democratic Europe, since the Second World War, has been at peace with each other. So democracy works. So therefore, if there is a true democracy in Pakistan, I think it will be the interest of all of its neighbors, including India. I don't believe a strong democratic government in Pakistan will undermine their relationship with anybody. I think the best thing that can happen for India is a truly representative democratic government in Pakistan. So, but
if I can just interject, no democratic government in Pakistan ever fought with India.
Correct, that is true too, and then that proves my point. But as I said, the whole discussion will be based on what the founding fathers taught us. And in the beginning, when I said few words, I clearly stated that I always tell my children that founding fathers of America were great, that America is great because it had the greatest founding fathers. And the words and the wisdom of those men were not just meant for America, but it's a blueprint for the rest of the world also. So I will quote another founding fathers now, and it will just be like a, to whatever we have been discussing, follow-up question to that. And he said, I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. Words of our founding father. And vast majorities of Pakistanis believe this is what we have in Pakistan, the mindset of slavery. And when Imran Khan came to power, or his opponents, what do we hear from them? They will tell us that Imran Khan is not acceptable to China. He's not acceptable to Saudi Arabia. He's not acceptable to the Indians. Obviously, he's not acceptable to the Americans. And somewhere I read in Dawn newspaper that even, some aliens in Mars were against him also. But the question is, how can any country not choose their own leader? How can any country dictate who should lead, be the leader in that country and not the people of their own country? So can we say the same for leaders of China or India, England or Australia, that, this person cannot be your leader? So if it is wrong for them, then why anybody has a right to dictate who should lead Pakistan?
The answer is obvious, no one should. There can't be much of a debate on the issue. I mean, if we believe in the principle of democracy, if we believe in the principle of national sovereignty, as you even read the previous thing, that it is the self-evident right of the people to, in pursuit of happiness and choose their own destiny, then people of any country have the right to choose their own leader. For instance, when in 2013 it became obvious to Western capitals that Narendra Modi will become the next Prime Minister of India, at the time more than 10 countries, close to 15, between 10 to 15 Western countries, including United States, UK and many European countries, had placed a visa entry ban on Narendra Modi because of the 2002 pogroms and killings in Gujarat, for which the intelligence agencies had reported to the Western capitals. For instance, the British intelligence had reported to the British government, which was leaked in Indian Express in 2002, that they collected information and they had reason to believe that 2,000 mostly Muslims were killed and massacred in Gujarat, and Narendra Modi was directly responsible. So in view of these intelligence assessments, the Western capitals banned Narendra Modi, and not a very good profile, which I'm referring to. But in 2013, it became obvious that he's the most popular candidate for the Bharatiya Janata Party, and he will become the Prime Minister. So all the ambassadors and envoys of these 10 to 15 countries went to Gujarat to basically seek forgiveness of Narendra Modi, because they knew that he's becoming the Prime Minister of India. And I think you see the point, because they realize that Indian people are sovereign. Now the problem is this, that the Pakistani people have never been sovereign. According to a very senior State Department official whom I have interacted, a number of years, he told me that Imran Khan has been seen as an odd character because all of the Pakistani leaders were so meek and so obsequious and so submitting, and they had no self-respect. I mean, these were exactly the word: meek, obsequious, and lacking self-respect. And he referred to Shahbaz Sharif in particular, that, Washington and London like to have leaders like Shahbaz Sharif. Remember when Nawaz Sharif came to meet Obama, they were sitting like this, if you remember that, situation. So Nawaz Sharif had a written paper in his pocket, which he had to basically, I'm sitting with you and I'm searching for my pocket. So there were hundreds of cameras focused on it, and Nawaz Sharif was continuously looking for the piece of paper, and he looked into one pocket and he looked into the other pocket and then he looked in the other pocket. That was the situation of the Pakistani leadership. So suddenly you had a leader who could look eye into eye with whom Boris Johnson was having his own selfies, and it was not acceptable. Now it also depends upon us that how we had to shape that coup between Pakistan and the Western world, that because Imran Khan certainly thought that if he could be a celebrity adored by the English and cricket-speaking countries in Australia, New Zealand and UK, of course not United States, Pakistan can also be accepted at the same level. Pakistan was never accepted at the level at which Imran Khan was accepted with royalty, could get married to Jemima Goldsmith. Pakistanis are not being accepted at that level. Imran Khan violated the West-East equation as well. And they were not, because Pakistan has never been sovereign. They have always controlled Pakistan through civil military bureaucracies. Pakistan has never been independent in the way India has been independent. In 1947, two countries were created, one independent India, the other a former British colony given a cosmetic independence. This is how I see it.
Eric, Ryan, one of you.
I guess if you want to bring it back to the Founding Fathers, I would just say real quickly that all nations, and this includes many of our Founding Fathers, view their own citizens' sovereignty with a lot more favorability than they view the sovereignty of other nations. You can even look speaking of the French Revolution, after the Haitian Revolution, John Adams, one of our Founding Fathers, was president at the time, and because he found it to be in the interest of the United States to get some distance from France, Haiti was rebelling a little bit from France, despite keeping some linkages for a while. He treated the new Haitian government of freed slaves that overthrew slavery with respect, with aid, weapons, supplies, and was on a path toward giving actual respect and sovereignty to the people of Haiti. Thomas Jefferson, another Founding Father, took over. Adams was a one-term president, and his interests were completely different. He was both pro-slavery and pro-French. And so he cut ties with Haiti. And so this is even the author of the words, all men are created equal. It's complicated and it depends.
Eric?
Yeah, I think it's actually interesting that you bring up sovereignty, because this is one of the challenges that this movement, I think, has most of all. As you said, it's very much a movement for, true independence and sovereignty, but the U.S. is, normally when we're fighting for sovereignty and protecting the sovereignty of countries around the world, we're saying, don't go to war with that country, or don't put sanctions on that country, don't meddle. But in this case with Pakistan, they've actually reversed it, and they're saying, well, we don't want to meddle, what that court system decides to disqualify those candidates or lock up those people. We're respecting Pakistani sovereignty. And so this is one of the challenges of this movement is, explaining to these policymakers and the power centers that in this case, this supposed non-intervention is actually a form of approval and encouragement. And it's really the big challenge. And it's not unique to Pakistan. We had a similar dynamic in Peru, where they had their first indigenous leader after 500 years. He did a technical mistake, arguably, and then they said, well, now we're going to remove you. They were trying to remove him anyway. And so the white elites of Peru, who've been running the country for 500 years, took it back. And the U.S. said, we respect your sovereignty. And of course, what's really happening is the white elites are retaking power, and the U.S. is supporting it and encouraging it. So these are challenging, situations to explain. It's not as easy as saying don't go to war or don't, sanction our economy. But we do have great reporters who have exposed that U.S. role. We wouldn't have even known about the minimal U.S. role. So I think that does speak to the challenge that this community here in the U.S. will have.
And that's why I liked Alima's idea of, hey, just seize a couple Manhattan apartments and cancel some visas. And that's not intervention. That's just implementing U.S. law inside the United States borders based on criminal activity that they can easily identify, and then just see what effect that has.
And they also, said that so many words for Bangladesh, actually.
Right.
Yeah, they basically said that.
So Dr. Nadeem has a question.
A question, a comment, the discussion going on. The basic principle of democracy is what? Accountability. Accountability. If you take the accountability here, nobody care what the founding father said. Our nation's Pakistan founding father said the same thing, that the army is accountable and is under the government of the people. But we people forgot. But like the same concept as Sister Alima said, that all these Western nations park the all illegitimate money. Every person who has earned by injustice means and all this money laundering happen where? Swiss banks, England, America, right? My money which I have earned through my practicing medicine, my each and every single penny is accounted. And if I have not paid tax on it, I am worried that I'm gonna get the yellow suit on me. Why those countries are not telling that, okay, if the Nawaz is putting this much money and buying those Avonfield apartments, where that money came from? And we are not going to park your money in our bank if you do not tell the sources. These are different standards. We are held accountable here, but no, this applies to South American too. All South American monies comes into these Swiss banks, American banks, Britain banks, because they have a free money to do all this trade and build their own economy. So yes, we need as a society of accountability and justice for all, has to be put those marks on others who bring the illegitimate monies to these countries. Then you are fair, and that's what Imran Khan likened, because he said that these Western societies has made those third world countries poor because they do not get their money accountable who bring them to their countries. So ban them, yes.
All right, thank you.
Do you want someone to comment on that?
I think we can, I think he just wanted to make a comment, Thank you, Nadeem bhai. So the next question is, which are very relevant to what you guys do, you're being with your background from press. Again, I will quote the founding father. Our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost. So all of you can comment about the freedom of press in Pakistan and how is it impacting the society over there and what to expect going forward.
Very interesting question. Ryan, you have been observing Pakistan for the last number of months. When you actively started to follow Pakistan? When? At what time?
It was, actively was around the time of the intense crackdown on just mentioning the name Imran Khan.
2022.
Yeah.
So what have you made a sense of the Pakistani media? Because not many people understand. I'm from the Pakistani media. So what have you understood about it? What happened? Why it happened?
Well, I've always known that we're a bit unique here in the United States because we have a First Amendment, and it's kind of hard. It was hard for me at first to understand that the First Amendment only applied to the United States, and that elsewhere around the world there was not that same respect. Because of the work that we do, I've had to learn the kind of defamation and freedom of speech laws in countries around the world, because we get sued in Kenya for a story in Kenya, we can get sued in the UK for a story in the UK, and I'm always shocked to think, why is there not just freedom of speech and freedom of expression? This is absurd. This is a bedrock principle. And one of the founding fathers had said that the First Amendment isn't worth the paper that it's printed on if the kind of cultural respect isn't there for it. It can be eroded just as quickly as some of the other rights, like the right to vote, for instance, was granted after the Civil War, but then stripped through Jim Crow for the next 60, 75 years, even though it was written right there into the words of the Constitution. But I'd never seen anything like what I saw in Pakistan, observing the way that.
I mean, you're comparing Pakistan with the United States, or comparing it worldwide?
No, even worldwide.
Even worldwide.
Because it's such a sophisticated media environment, it's such a huge media audience, 240, 250 million people. And so you might see similar levels of censorship in small countries that with much less sophisticated media, but in a putatively democratic country with, multiple online and broadcast outlets. One of the first stories that Murtaza and I wrote was, it wasn't news to anybody in Pakistan, but one piece that we had reported that hadn't been public before was that the military had called the publishers, or the owners of a lot of broadcast companies to a meeting in Islamabad and said, there will be no more mentioning of Imran Khan, and that it was.
How interesting. How interesting that you can make up a demand like that.
Yeah, and that you could see it visibly, or the dog that wasn't barking, you could not hear it, but to know that there was an actual meeting where the owners were called in and told that this is the order, it's just startling. Somebody shared a video just yesterday of a cricket match where they showed Imran Khan's. Somebody in the crowd had had a poster of him, and the ball went out there, and so the poster's on the screen, and boop, they shut the, the channel just goes blank. They can't even show even during a match, and that really stunned me, and so that was one.
Today they shut down the internet at 7 p.m. all across Pakistan because PTI was actually having a virtual jalsa.
Yes.
So they just shut down the internet.
Yeah, and so that was when Maz and I said, let's spend more time on this.
So you found this as a very interesting subject, I agree.
Yeah.
Eric, so what do you think? What do you make of Pakistani media?
Yeah, I think it's been shocking to see that video yesterday, the Imran Khan sign, and they just go blank. I mean, this is exactly what, the average American or person who works in Congress is told, well, that's what China does, or that's what North Korea does, and these are the most evil countries ever. But then there's no discussion of it with regards to Pakistan. And so I think also what Ryan mentioned of kind of there being an order, in the US, we have a tough time getting coverage on things. It's just a natural systemic process. If we didn't have the Intercept, I don't know that anyone would ever write anything that that we're doing. No, but it's a natural kind of process that, some commentators have explained. So when they actually outright censor it, I mean, it's just so blatant, and I think that provides ammunition for people here to really show, for example, the internet censorship. When Iran did that during their protest movement, the U.S. actually lifted sanctions. They lifted sanctions to support the internet in Iran, and they've put tens of millions of dollars into, clandestine internet development in countries like Iran for that reason. And so I think that's going to be, and there's a lot to say about it, but part of the strategy this movement, I think, will have to do is draw those parallels to say, well, why is it that you spoke out this way with Iran or with Belarus or Nicaragua, and then for our people, you're saying that we need to respect their sovereignty, and kind of drawing that out. And I think the media is one place that it's very hard for U.S. politicians and human rights organizations to explain how they can be silent on that.
Interesting. So, what would you like me to explain? Because I'm from the Pakistani media and I know so many different things that to basically give you a comprehensive answer, what would be one central question that comes to your mind about media?
We need an inside scoop. Inside scoop. That's true, dude.
No, but that's a different. I left Pakistan because no one directly threatened me, but they used to call me every week. And they were very respectful, but I started realizing this thing that the circle is getting narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower, right? And if I were in Pakistan, I would not have been able to speak out the way I did in the past several months. So I paid the price of the freedom of expression. So I realized that I would have the freedom to express. That is why I left Pakistan. But Pakistani, I can start from that. Very interesting, but the thing that startled someone like Ryan, that all Pakistani television channel director, news and owners were called by the Pakistani establishment by one single officer several months ago, which you referred to, in a 5-minute meeting. That was not in a 1-hour meeting that they were offered cookies and biscuits and coffee, and they said, look, hi, you need to understand that we are troubled, we're under pressure, we need your cooperation, It used to be like that. There was a time, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that they would call the media anchor persons, the director of news and the owners of the television channels, and they would give them dinner and lunch, and they would explain them that, there's such is the situation, we're under stress. So Pakistan has moved from a relative age of civilization to an age of barbarism, barbarian at the gates, that kind of situation. So that scene is not the norm even in Pakistan, has not been the norm for the past 20, 25, 30 years. This was not happening even in Pakistan. So this is what I call is a regression of the society and the politics, that an officer, and not to even the senior most officer, a mid-ranking official of the establishment could call the media tycoons and the editors and the director of news and director of operations and just didn't even give them the opportunity to sit down and settle in the chairs. He basically tells them that this is what your orders are for you. So I think there are two parallel problems in Pakistan. Every country has its own sets of problems. For instance, in this country, which is such a splendid, majestic country where I have taken refuge, in the last several weeks, the freedom of expression of the American people came under attack when you see such a powerful, the way they got rid of the president of the UPenn, the UPenn University of Pennsylvania, and the way they forced the president of Harvard out. This was a decapitation exercise which they have done for all the elite universities to send the message. And these presidents were not making the slogans or had no personal opinions. The charge against them was that the students were demonstrating on the campuses and they were not taking the executive actions to control their expression. In a country like United States with the First Amendment on, and all constitution and courts are there, the freedom of expression of the American people and the students on campuses like this has been taken away. And how they have used certain concepts of anti-Semitism, these against the Jewish people, which is all an exploitation. Now within Pakistan, there has been a huge exploitation in the name of religion. So whenever you can exploit something to make it sacred and religious and Islam, you can control the expression. What is the Iddat case? The stupid case against Imran Khan, 71-year-old man, a 50-year-old woman, right? I mean, they have charged them in the year 2024 for doing a crime and marrying against, the laws. I mean, I do not know if out of the 180 countries in the world, we have ever heard of a case like this where a man has actually been charged for doing a crime by the state. Have you ever heard of any country? I never heard in Somalia or Yemen someone bringing a charge like this. So, and you probably don't even know this thing, that Imran Khan has been charged for marrying his wife illegally, right? So they have invoked Islam. They have invoked Islam, right? So the two things through which they have controlled the freedom of expression and freedom of thought in Pakistan is, one is Islam, that the fear, so every time when who has gone to the best universities in the world, born Muslim, Sunni, Urdu, everything, if I make a comment that this interpretation of it is not true, there will be tens of people on my vlog who follow me otherwise, who Dr. Moeed, don't talk about religion, you do not know much about religion, this is for the ulama to talk about, do not talk about religion. So one big blackmailing thing in Pakistan is religion, which has merged itself with the national security paradigm. The other thing is the national security. So the natak they played on May 9th was the national security has been attacked by the rogue people of Pakistan. So there are two fears, like Zionism is a tool through which they control the American public opinion. In Pakistan, it is Islam. This man is Ahmadi. He's not a true Muslim. He's an agent of the Jews. Right? He's working against Islam, he's working against national security. This is how the freedom of expression is ultimately controlled. If these two things are debated and the power of these two things, of religion and national security, are taken away, you will find Pakistani mind start to think. They don't let 240 million people of Pakistan think. When Alima says we are 240 million people, out of them not only 24 million are able to think through these two issues, Islam and national security. How are they blackmailing people of Pakistan on May 9th? What is the whole significance consequence of the May 9th. What happened on May 9th? People went and demonstrated outside the military installations because they knew the military is the power. Why would they not demonstrate? Why do people come on the White House? You go and demonstrate against the White House every week, I've been there so many times demonstrating. You go and chat with the Secret Service over there. They tell you how many demonstrations take place every week outside the White House, right? What's wrong in demonstrating outside the GHQ? Tell me, Dr. Munir, what's wrong in demonstrating outside the Corps Commander House? If they are the power, if the power is not in the parliament, when the power is in the parliament, people go and demonstrate outside the parliament. When the power is in the GHQ, the people should go and demonstrate outside the GHQ. Why it's such a sin? So there is where the freedom of expression dies in Pakistan.
So I think that brings us to our last question from my side, and then we will go to, we'll have a brief discussion about the solutions as to how we can move forward from here. So whatever we discussed, just on our previous question, again, a wise man, I will quote him, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Now, how do we see the future consequences of this political engineering in Pakistan, in which 80% of the population is being disenfranchised and attempts are made to force a government through a highway robbery and call it an election? Will this eventually lead to an extremist and fundamentalist government like the one we have in Iran now, which is a direct result of the murder of democracy that took place when Prime Minister Mossadegh was ousted many, many years ago? So how will you see that, Dr. Moeed? And Eric and Ryan, please comment on that last question.
Who wants to comment first, because I just finished my talk?
Well, I would just say this is one of the challenges that comes up a lot, and when you're trying to explain, how U.S. foreign policy is impacting a country is you can talk about the potential harm that's going to come, but then by the time it happens, you can say, I told you this was going to happen, but it's too late. This is like, for example, in many of the wars, the war in Libya, we were worried about the destabilization. With people in Libya, they pretty much overwhelmingly regret that decision now, but there's not much we can do with that now because you can't go back. And so, but I do think it's a very strong point, and I think there's ways to make that case that, especially with, this kind of somewhat ignorant understanding that a lot of Americans have, the association of Pakistan with, extremism and instability in connection to Afghanistan, there's a way to kind of help some of these policymakers see that there's a real chance of instability that could be really threatening to U.S. interests. So I think that could be one way to reach folks who otherwise would not pay attention.
I think one consequence of it has been and will continue to be the kind of awakening of the Pakistani diaspora community here in the United States to the role that they can play domestically in the United States. So many are American citizens, have always been civic-minded, but as people have talked about before, have always just kind of blindly voted Democrat and not participated significantly in the political process in the way that other lobbies have. And so seeing the role that the United States played over the last, and it is continuing to play in destabilizing Pakistan and leading to everything we're talking about, the current state of democracy and human rights violations, I think I've noticed a real kind of rising up of Pakistani Americans here in the United States, feeling their way toward, how they can have influence in Washington, D.C. And I think that there's obviously a lot of smart, talented, driven people in that community who I think are going to find ways to get there.
So to the injustice, tolerating injustice in one part brings injustice everywhere. This is what the central idea is,
Exactly right.
Yeah. The two sets of examples which can help you understand why this is so true. This is not just a collection of words or a proverb. We, the people who live in Punjab, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in Pakistan, the main two provinces, or Sindh or Karachi, have easily, before 1971, we decided to be oblivious to whatever was happening to Bengal, what was happening in Bengalis. There was not much information anyway. But even if the information was coming, the Bengalis were being mistreated, and they are upset and they're angry. The people in the West Pakistan joined together, the elite, the media, in considering Bengalis as agents of Hindus or India or against the national security, right? Now, let's forget East Pakistan. Huge atrocities have taken place in FATA, and huge atrocities have been taking place in Balochistan. And the Pakistani institutions got used to doing those atrocities, denying the justice, not having the due course of law, abducting people, torturing them, killing them, dumping their bodies, missing persons in hundreds and thousands. But the people in Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Sindh and Karachi did not react to that. Apart from certain NGOs or certain sections of the media, people in Pakistan, but life was going hunky-dory, right? So the Pakistani institutions, what they call is that muh ko khoon lag jata hai. So they learned all those things in Balochistan and FATA. They thought it is a norm of controlling when they're given the orders to control the public opinion. And you saw from 2022 onwards, they applied all those methodologies against the mainstream Pakistanis, against Punjab and against Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So this is, once you permit tyranny and injustice in one part of a realm or a system, it comes to haunt. Now, this is not only local in terms of one country. By permitting the injustice and tyranny in Gaza, what is the price the Americans are paying? They are paying the price that despite the First Amendment, their own freedom of expression is affected. So there's so much of, suppression taking place against the demonstrators. I mean, the students of Harvard or UPenn and the other universities, there's so much pressure, people are being targeted. So this is the beginning of the price which the powerful interests in the United States are letting the Americans pay the price of permitting the tyranny in Gaza, right? Now, if Pakistani state has hired its own vigilantes to harass Pakistani Americans, and dozens of such cases are reported where people are being harassed, Americans of Pakistani origin are being harassed by the Pakistani state in United States, no one killed so far, the transnational repression. Clearly, by State Department and the Biden administration not taking a just position against the tyranny in Pakistan, the tyrannical state of Pakistan is ready to export its tyranny because they feel emboldened. They think Washington is with us. They feel, so far they haven't killed anyone, but if they kept on getting the encouragement the way Biden administration has encouraged them, look what the Indians are about to do. I mean, I'm so glad that ultimately the US state decided to take a position on the Indians hiring the assassins to kill the Sikh activists in New York. This is such a relief because Pakistanis have suddenly, realized that there is some sort of accountability. So if you don't do these accountabilities, if you don't take a position against injustice, it comes back to haunt you wherever you are. It has haunted us in Lahore. It will haunt United States within United States by permitting this.
Thank you. You have a question?
My name is Maheen, and I was born in Pakistan, but lived in the U.S. for most of my life. Like many of us here, we have a lot of family members who still live in Pakistan, and as the current political situation has continued to escalate over the last year, I've become increasingly concerned about the safety of my family and for all of the citizens of our beautiful nation. So I have two questions for those of you who have a better finger on the pulse of the current level of unrest in Pakistan. One, do you think that revolution is possible if the military continues to act at the way that they have for the last year? And two, do you think that revolution is necessary to change the way that things are currently moving forward in Pakistan? And when I say revolution, I mean like violent revolution.
So who should answer this question?
All three of you?
Revolution in Pakistan.
I mean, that, not my area of expertise. I don't think so. I think that if you have mass support at the ground level, there do seem to be still other ways that can translate into power rather than through some Leninist type of takeover of the Kremlin or something.
I think when people in general use the term revolution, they expect a big physical change that removes the power that controls the system. So the word revolution brings to their mind the French Revolution, the Iranian Revolution, the Marxist Communist Revolution of Russia, where the elite system that was in control for hundreds of years was thrown and was changed. But revolution also means change. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, how radical is the change? Systems like United States, where you can bring change, not only through the presidential election, but there are 50 governors' elections. There is every state is bicameral, apart from Alaska. You have a House, you have a Senate. You keep on bringing the change. So there is no real need of a revolution. And then with scientific and technological inventions like Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, this artificial intelligence, the change is continuously coming. So this is such a beautiful place from that point of view. And I love to be here because change is happening every 10 years. The United States can reinvent itself. In case of Pakistan revolution, the way I think Maheen thinks about the revolution has certain structural problems wherever those three revolutions have taken place: the Marxist revolution in Russia, the French revolution in France, and of course the Iranian revolution. There is first of all the presupposition of a single nation that is capable of possessing a certain idea. The idea is either Marxist, socialist, or in case of Iran is Islam, or in case of French was the French the French Revolution was the culmination of perhaps 100 years of the Enlightenment era of the European thought, which erupted in France. It was Paris actually revolting against Europe and against France, right? It was the Paris, the city. The French Revolution was not a French thing as such from every corner of the France. I did a lot of study on that. It was principally Paris, rebelling against everything. Pakistan doesn't have a solid cocoon of an idea. If a revolution came to Pakistan, it can take two directions. One is Islamist, the way things are being done by the Pakistani elite, and the way income inequality is increasing, and there is extreme social poverty. If you just look at the Human Rights Watch report that just came, 750-page report, and what it talks of Pakistan in the last 2 years, there is massive economic problem and frustration. So if it give way, and there are no democratic solution, in the next couple of years, there can either be an Islamist revolution in Punjab, or there could be an ethnic revolt in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and GB and all that. There are two possibilities of revolution, not the French Revolution, not the Marxist Revolution, not the Iranian unifying revolution. Imran Khan offered this great opportunity to the Pakistani establishment, which soldiers being soldiers are unable to understand. He is a comprehensive composite Pakistani who provides a unifying face to the people of Pakistan. He's half Pashtun, half Punjabi, Urdu-speaking Karachites like him, Sindhis are not against him, Baluch are not against him, soldiers in the army like him. So they're missing this great opportunity of having a leader that could have given them a unifying platform for the next few years.
And just to, emphasize here that the political party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf and its leadership, Imran Khan, they are pacifists. Imran Khan has said on many occasions he's against all wars, and that means all wars. And he has also said again and again that he's a pacifist. He's against all kind of violence, including the so-called May 9 violence. As a party, as all patriotic Pakistani, we are all against mayhem in the country. We will never want that any kind of bloodshed should take place in the country. We believe in due process, and that's the purpose of all these exercises that we have on different levels here and all over the world, that we believe in due process, and we believe voices should be heard, ideas should be exchanged, and rational people should make rational decisions based on consensus. That's how societies move forward, that's how countries move forward, and that's how we strongly believe, inshallah, Pakistan will also move forward. Please go ahead with your question.
I have two questions. My name is Tariq Khan. First question is for Ryan and Eric. As the Indian influence in US increases, especially in Washington and in State Department, how much do you think this decision to remove Imran Khan was influenced by the diaspora here? Because Modi and S.J. Shankar, they have always made statements against Imran Khan. And moving forward, how much influence do you think the diaspora will have in bringing back Imran Khan? Will they resist to it? My second question is for Moeed Saab. You mentioned that if the political a civilian government is reinstalled in Pakistan, the Indian they come in and through negotiations, they may have better relationships with Pakistan economically and politically. Don't you think that if that were to happen, if Imran Khan comes back and they have conversation or discussions with Indians, don't you think the Indian economy is so strong that once they're allowed to come into Pakistan, they'll pretty much take over, the markets there? Because the tug of war, as far as I understand, is economic between China and India. So the second question is for you.
On the first question, real quickly, Eric would have more to say on this, I think. Just from my conversations with people here in Washington, I don't have any direct evidence of it, but yes, it does appear that the preferences of India and the diaspora here, at least were factored in and played a role. And I think that would continue to be the case in any effort for him to make a comeback.
So you said that it was factored in. Can you?
That's my understanding, but I don't have any direct evidence of that.
Okay.
What is your understanding? I want to finish.
Just that the geopolitical approach of the United States was influenced by wanting to have a strong India to counter China, and that India's preferences and India's ability to rise was assumed to be boosted by getting rid of Imran Khan. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's. And I think it's the same pressures, the focus on China that made so many U.S. politicians and the White House drop their criticism of Modi. I mean, we have long history of his behavior, and suddenly he was received, and it was only the most principled members of Congress had an issue with it, where it was a mainstream concern before that. So I think it's sort of self-reinforcing. You have the Indian American community that people want votes from, and then the White House is also signaling we're not going to be that critical of Modi's human rights violations. So I think it's not the cause, but it's definitely kind of contributes to that.
To your question regarding your question had a number of parts, but Indian economy is so strong that if India is allowed to come and invest into the Pakistani industry, and Pakistan opens up its trade barriers, lowers down them, declares India the most favored nation state, then Indian economy will come and take over the Pakistani economy. Yes, more or less that situation can develop. But now there are certain things to be understood which have not been understood. No Pakistani civilian government, including Nawaz Sharif or Asif Ali Zardari or Benazir Bhutto, or in the 90s, Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif, they all wanted to have good relationship with India. And then when Nawaz Sharif and Asif Ali Zardari wanted to have good relationship with India, State Department, United States wanted Pakistan and India to have good relationship when they created the Kerry-Lugar bill and all that. And they started investing into Pakistani NGOs and media. They had kept almost like $750 million, or I don't know what is the exact figure, but hundreds of $millions. They created a lot of influence. The principal goal was they wanted to encourage Pakistan to engage India. And the idea, which has been examined a number of times by US think tanks and the government and the universities, that if you want India to confront China, you have to help India. Now, India itself is not as smart. If you look at New York Times pages and Foreign Policy and other publications, you get the impression that if Indians are very generally innovative and very capable, it's really doing genius work. But the reality, which all Americans, realpolitik thinkers know fully well, is that India is no real match for China. Unless the United States and the West help India stand up, India cannot take on China. Indian economy is very weak. Indian people have a lot of injustices. It's not an economic engine. China is an economic engine. China has done something unbelievable. I do not know how they have done it. I really want to go and look at China, but looking at the way the economy has grown, the way you go in order to Amazon and go to Walmart and go to Tesla and go to Target. I'm sorry, Tesla. You go to Target or you go to Walmart and you go to any store and you find that everything which I'm wearing, from the shoes to the socks to the underwears to the trousers to the belt to the jacket, everything is coming from China. United States is producing weapons and high-tech things. All our Apple phone and iPads, everything is coming from China. So the idea is pretty clear, and I'm surprised at how the people in Pakistan, if we really have an intelligentsia, so-called, and when I say intelligentsia, I refer to the editors of Dawn, Tribune, The Nation, people sitting in think tanks and universities. If we really had any substantive, meaningful intelligentsia, we would have thought about these things, that we have to deal with India. Now, I interacted a lot with the Indian High Commissioner and his teams, and because I was a publisher, and I used to write against India. So they used to call me for dinner every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and they used to give me their perspective. Their argument was this, that if we get the Pakistani market, we're only fighting against the Chinese market, because Chinese goods are flooding, and this is also the American and the British argument. The Pakistani market is being flooded from Jayanamas to Tasbih. Everything is coming from China. So if Indian goods also come, they will actually be competing against the Chinese goods, right? So in 2013, when Khurram Dastagir was the Commerce Minister of the PMLN government, in the beginning of 2014, before the Indian election of May 2014, when Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister the first time, Khurram Dastagir and Anil Sharma or something, the Indian Commerce Minister, we were almost cinching a trade deal of declaring India the most favored nation. This is few months, 2 or 3 months before the Indian election of May, say January or February 2014. So the Indian delegation, which consisted of more than 100 top Indian business tycoons, the best, Birlas, Tatas, everybody wasn't sitting in Serena and Marriott for 3, 4, 5 days. India and Pakistan has cinched a deal. Then a man arrived from United States, New York, a businessman. This is quite an interesting thing if you don't remember this thing. This man arrives and he says that he is an envoy from Narendra Modi and BJP. He's an American Indian NRI, non-resident Indian businessman. And he wants an audience with Nawaz Sharif. And he gets an audience from Nawaz Sharif. But Khurram Dastagir never gets an audience from him. So the Commerce Minister of Pakistan never gets an audience with him. This man gets an audience with Sartaj Aziz Marhoom and with Nawaz Sharif. And he says that, look, Narendra Modi has sent me. And the message is this, that you shouldn't deal with the Congress, because we are coming in power definitely. And when we come, we can actually have a trade deal with you. So Nawaz Sharif got confused, or I don't know what happens, because the Nawaz Sharif I have not been able to speak to Nawaz Sharif, but I have spoken to Khurram Dastagir, the Indian High Commissioner, and many other people about that. The Indian High Commissioner told me that this was actually sent by Pakistani ISI. So the Pakistani military got hold of some successful Indian businessman who was NRI, who was BJP. They paid him or they collaborated with him and they brought him a message. It was not a message from Narendra Modi or BJP or whatever. I don't know what really happened. So the trade deal stopped. The trade deal between India and Pakistan stopped. Moving forward from 2014 till the removal of Imran Khan government in 2022, in between 2018. It is not Imran Khan who didn't want to engage India. Like Nawaz Sharif, Imran Khan was equally interested in engaging India. So the first victory speech for the election, which he did on 26th of July 2018, after winning the election. 25th was the election day. On 26th, Imran Khan did a national televised address. The first thing he said is this: we want to have good relationship with India. You take 1 step towards us, we will take 2 steps towards you. As soon as he sat in a Prime Minister on 20th August, he wrote a personal letter to Narendra Modi asking him to let the foreign ministers meet in General Assembly session, Sushma Swaraj Marhuma and Shah Mahmood Qureshi. So Indians were reluctant, the establishment didn't want that to happen, but Narendra Modi agreed. So the meeting was taking place. Then suddenly a stupid incident happened which had absolutely no significance. And there was some soldier was killed in Jammu and Kashmir. And Indians said, since Imran Khan is personally responsible for this terrorism, they insulted Imran Khan and said Imran Khan is a terrorist, he's part of his military and so on. So we're not going to talk to the terrorist. I believe that Indian establishment didn't want to engage Imran Khan because they thought that Imran Khan is in the control of the military establishment. They didn't want to deal with Imran Khan, right? and they decided not to go forward with Imran Khan. And India not accepting Imran Khan as the legitimate leader in Pakistan is a bigger problem than even United States, because United States then followed that. Am I making sense to some of you? You know, so what happened in the form of Bajwa from 2018 onwards is the Pakistani establishment before Bajwa was resisting the Indo-American plan for engaging India. Bajwa, for reasons best known to him, if any one of us gets to interview him, for reasons best known to him, surrendered on the Indo-American plan to engage India. And then removal of Imran Khan. You just saw what happened with Iran in the last 48 hours. Could you have imagined anything like that could have happened between Pakistan and Iran if someone like Imran Khan, or even if Nawaz Sharif was the prime minister, even if there was a normal civilian democracy, nothing like that would have ever happened. We would have never reached that point. So Bajwa accepted the plan of engaging India. Now this establishment is following on the same plan. So their plan right now is they want to bring a government that is going to engage India because they have realized this thing. They want to move away from China. They want to engage India. The fantasy in their mind is, which I call fantasy, is they think it will be a very easy transition because they control Pakistan, media, judiciary, people, institutions. I think they're doing stupidity because there are historical reasons that India and Pakistan have to move in baby steps, step by step, to build trust and open up gradually. And they're incapable of baby steps because they have surrendered. So the real disaster has to come after the election, if I correctly understand what's happening over there. There's no harm for Indian goods coming into Pakistan, but Pakistan, being the weaker economy, needs a protracted trust-making negotiation with India, which is being denied to Pakistan. Nawaz Sharif was willing to do that. The establishment didn't happen. Imran Khan was willing to do that. The Indian establishment was not prepared to engage Imran Khan. Or maybe the Pakistani establishment played Pulwama. You never know who did Pulwama, because Pulwama is also a defining factor in the February of 2019 before the Indian election. So we don't really know what's really happening, but something like that is happening.
I think we are kind of running out of time here. So the time was from 1 to 3 p.m. We are almost at 3:30 p.m. here. So I think we will kind of wrap it up here. But before we wrap it up, I would like your concluding remarks from all three of you. Eric, can you please go ahead first?
Just concluding remarks, generally, or?
Generally, just about the discussion that took place. I mean, what's the way forward? What's the way forward? And one thing which I really want to, hear from all of you is, what can American Pakistani diaspora do, practical steps-wise, to help the situation?
Yeah, great. Well, I think it's been an incredibly informative event. And I think this community just continues to show how active it is, how sharp, people are in terms of knowing the history and following what's going on. And I think, it's reviewing what's been going on kind of in the advocacy in Congress, it's been pretty impressive already to see, so many members of Congress engaging with this community. But I think it's now time to kind of take that next step. And that next step is, I think, beyond just allowing members of Congress to say, take an action that is sort of just to show their support so they can point to something in the Pakistani community. In this community, I know at the Hill event, it's so many people saying, well, what are you going to do to get the White House to actually respond? And I think that's the next step of this movement, is to find, tactics and to demand of the representatives that you actually lay out a plan for changing this policy. Not that you just take an action that you could point to when you come to the community center or whatever and try to get votes. And so I think, we had Miss Khan, had a very good idea, a policy idea, which is focusing on the, using these personal sanctions that they have targeted, many different leaders around the world with. And I think a lot of this movement is going to have real opportunities, because the U.S. has complained in many, many instances about this exact behavior in so many other circumstances, that there is an opportunity there to show that, and to have members of Congress say, Alyssa Slotkin, Spanberger, all these folks that have supported your efforts, to get them to continue down that path, to continue to raise the, to really pressure them to raise the stakes with the White House, so that the White House can't just, give these answers as if nothing's going on, and to increase that pressure. That's the task of this movement. And I think it's really important that this movement also kind of connect with the other movements that have gone through these similar struggles in Washington. It's not the first country to have this experience, and each one of those movements, when they go to Washington, they learn so much about what is a meaningful. When a member of Congress helps us, is this a meaningful action that's really intended to put pressure on the White House, or is this something that they're doing to kind of just placate us and move on? And so I think that's going to be the next stage of this movement, is kind of finding those, making sure that their representatives find those actions and actually commit to a campaign with that as a goal of winning, rather than just kind of one-off actions that they can point to when they run for office.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for inviting me here. This was inspiring. It was, hearing from Alima was also inspiring. Dr. Pirzada, great to be on stage with you and Eric. I would just make one real quick point, because I know we're running long, which is, so the extent to which Washington perceives an organization or a group of people to be organized and effective plays a real outsized role in how much attention an issue gets in Congress. In fact, I used to hear this story all the time from aides to Nancy Pelosi, that before she would take a meeting with any constituency, we're talking about whether that is lobbying for something in Congress, she would take out the newspapers that go around Capitol Hill, Roll Call, The Hill, Politico, like the physical newspapers that are free, that are in every congressional office. She'd open them up and see if they had full-page ads in every one of them, because a full-page ad is something like $10,000 in these newspapers, and that to her kind of represented how committed this special interest was. Whether it was it could be a company, it could be a nonprofit, it could be a diaspora community lobbying on something, and if they were in all three, then that to her meant, all right, this is something I need to take seriously, because if they're organized enough and well funded enough to put money here, they're doing a lot more than just that. We also talked when we were on the Hill about the way that that organizations can kind of make a statement. I just noticed that there's an interesting Democratic primary in Illinois. AIPAC has endorsed a congressman named Bill Foster, kind of a backbench, kind of not well-known member of Congress in Illinois. He's facing a primary challenge from a Democrat named Qasim Rashid, who is challenging him significantly over the question of Israel-Palestine. But my understanding from people close to him is that he's well aware of what's going on in Pakistan, and quite critical of the U.S. role in fomenting what's happening there. And he has a real shot at knocking Bill Foster off. One thing he's lacking is money. I mean, he has enough that he's in the race, but if he had a national base of donors that put him over the top, that would really shake up Washington. Like if several $100,000 came into his campaign, and Washington understood that this was an organized kind of Pakistani American effort to boost this candidate, and it knocked off an incumbent, like that often is all you need to get on the map. I would never tell anybody what they should do or how they should run an organization, but that's just an example of the kind of thing that would get a group or an organization from outside the walls to inside the walls.
Thank you, Ryan.
Very quickly, number of points. The Pakistani American community is the single most important Pakistani diaspora in terms of its education, its background, professional capabilities, liquidity. But in a country of 330 million Americans, it's less than a million, which makes it less than 1%. Is one third of a percent. So it's probably 0.3% of the American population. first of all, it has to find allies. It has to see what other communities it can ally with. Can it ally with, say, Irish community? I'm just giving example, Chinese community, Middle Eastern community, Indian community, Cuban community, whatever. It has to find allies. This is the point one. Second is that it also has to reach out to see there are other equally vibrant Pakistani diasporas. There's a very large Pakistani diaspora in UK. Not as intellectually organized, but large in size, very passionate. There is a sizable Pakistani community in Canada. There is a small Pakistani community in Australia and New Zealand. And then there are small smutterings in various European capitals, whether it's Geneva, Brussels, Paris, whatever. There has to be an effort to organize them holistically, virtually, in some sort of idea. When Maheen, if her name was, which talked of revolution, revolutions are not necessarily revolutions can be pacifist. They're not necessarily, revolution can be a revolution of the mind as well. First of all, there has to be an idea. The idea of a democratic, inclusive Pakistan. A Pakistan that accepts Hindus, Christians, Ahmadi, Qadiani, Baha'i, whatever, atheist, non-believers, on the basis of a passport or constitutional rights, right? Like United States is, you could be a gay, lesbian, against abortion, for abortion, Christian, non-Christian, atheist, non-believers. Many Christians are post-Christianity in this country. They don't necessarily believe in Christianity. So Pakistanis, if they want a democratic, inclusive Pakistan, have to sharpen an idea as to what that Pakistan is. If the Pakistan they're defending is fighting India on Kashmir and all that, this is not a very flying Pakistan. This is not going to sell. You have to have a sharpened idea. Then setting up, yes, of course, and as Ryan always talks about, raising funding, financing, lobbying. A community which is only 0.3% and less than 1 million cannot be effectively doing the campaign financing like the Zionist lobby does, which is probably 6-7 million strong and is very well entrenched and very strong in media. But it can do other kind of pincer movements. Like this was a great initiative, much less publicized perhaps, but a great initiative, a very, very intelligent initiative. You can have a think tank in Washington without a building and without a staff. You can be sitting anywhere in the United States, but you can maybe have an office somewhere in Houston that can organize activities in Washington from time to time, where you can engage congressmen, senators, mayors, media, other public opinions. So you have to have a defining presence. Whatever election stroke selection is happening on 8 February is only one small battle in the larger war of independence of the Pakistani people. This is how I put it. And Pakistani American community can play an important role if it mentally, cerebrally, intellectually organizes itself and understands the challenge. If anyone is thinking that 8 February is necessarily the culmination of a struggle, you're wrong. 8 February, they have managed it very well. They've managed it very well. It's only being a selection. They produced their own results. So it has been a long struggle, and we have to be gearing for that long struggle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. Thank you to our panelists, Ryan, Dr. Moeed Pirzada, and Eric. Thank you very much for being with us. Just final words. Whatever we are doing here in this event today, on social media platforms, on Twitter, on different WhatsApp groups, car rallies, and whatever way you can think of to express yourself, it's only and only for one reason: to show that we exist, we are real people, and we mean well. We are all pacifists. We believe in due process, and all we are asking for is a right to free speech and a true democracy in Pakistan. That I hope any civilized man or woman will agree with. And all those decision makers in Pakistan who believe they can create a burgeoning and this prosperous country by ignoring 80% of its population and what they want are totally wrong. I was in discussion with a dear friend who happened to be very close to the current establishment, and he told me to my face that we will do what we believe is right for the country. And what we have realized is that one thing which Pakistan is lacking is continuity in policy making. And then he gave me an example of India. He said, look, India has a fascist government because this man is from a military background, so that is thinking about the current Indian setup, not necessarily reflecting my views. But he said India has a fascist government in place for the last many, many years. But because there is continuity of government, the country has progressed so well economically. My answer to him was very simple, that you just do not need continuity of a government, but you need legitimacy of a government also. Because if you only have continuity without legitimacy, you do not become India of the world, you become Burma or Myanmar of the world. Thank you very much.